Katt Williams didn't mince words on Club Shay Shay. He didn't accuse Kim Kardashian of anything directly. He didn't have to. What he said was more surgical than that. He suggested that whatever Kim and her family are involved in was serious enough to make every man who got close to her either run away, go silent, or end up on medication. That raised eyebrows at the time. Commentators called him disrespectful. Tabloids dismissed it as a comedian going too far on a podcast. But Katt has a track record of dropping names before the headlines catch up. He said what he said and then walked away from the mic. Fast forward to 2025, and a Polish truck driver is sitting in a UK courtroom, sentenced to 13.5 years for smuggling $9.4 million in cocaine, hidden inside a shipment of Kim Kardashian's SKIMS clothing. Suddenly, Katt's words don't sound like comedy anymore. In September 2025, Border Force officers at the port of Harwich intercepted a freight truck carrying a legitimate consignment of SKIMS apparel. Routine stop, standard procedure. But something flagged during inspection, and they ran the truck through an X-ray scanner. What the scan revealed was a hidden compartment engineered directly into the rear trailer doors. Inside, 90 kilograms of cocaine. Street value, $9.4 million. The driver, Jacob John Kanungal, later admitted he had made a deliberate 16-minute detour during his route to load the contraband. His payment for that detour? Approximately $4,900. He was sentenced to 13.5 years and faces deportation after serving his time. Officially, the investigation found no evidence linking the sender or the intended receiver of the SKIMS shipment to the drugs. But investigators and observers alike were left with an uncomfortable question. A hidden compartment that's sophisticated doesn't get built at the last minute. Here is a fact that received remarkably little mainstream coverage. The FBI has already questioned Kim Kardashian, not as a witness to someone else's crime, but in direct connection to Joe Low, a Malaysian financier accused of embezzling $4.5 billion from a government-owned investment fund. Before Low became an international fugitive, he moved through elite social circles with ease. Leonardo DiCaprio, Jamie Foxx, Paris Hilton, and Kim Kardashian. According to FBI documents from 2019, federal agents questioned Kim about a specific night in Las Vegas in 2009. Low was there. Two producers from The Wolf of Wall Street were there. And at the end of the night, Low handed Kim casino chips worth over $350,000. Kim cashed out $250,000 at the counter. The casino handed it to her in a trash bag, a literal trash bag full of $100 bills, which she placed in her carry-on and boarded a Southwest Airlines flight back to Los Angeles. The remaining $100,000 was collected on a separate trip. Also in a trash bag, the FBI noted it. The public largely never heard about it. Investigative reporters are trained to look for patterns, not isolated incidents. And when you start laying out the timeline around Kim Kardashian, a pattern does emerge. It begins well before the fame, back when Kim was working as a personal stylist and closet organizer for R&B star Brandy. According to a legal declaration filed in December by Sonia Norwood, Brandy's mother, Kim Kardashian, and her siblings incurred approximately $850,000 in unauthorized charges on credit cards belonging to members of the Norwood family. Sonia filed suit in 2008 and won. Kim was ordered to repay the full amount. That declaration wasn't filed casually. It was submitted as part of an ongoing court battle in which Ray J is fighting a defamation lawsuit brought against him by Kim and Kris Jenner. Sonia's filing was under oath. It corroborated Ray J's account in precise dollar figures. When a lawsuit winner goes back to court years later to reconfirm what happened, that is not gossip. That is a documented legal record. In 2009, Kris Jenner co-founded a private religious organization called California Community Church. On paper, it is registered as a nonprofit charity, which means it operates largely outside the reach of standard tax obligations. What makes this arrangement worth examining is not the church itself. It is the financial structure surrounding it. Members of the congregation reportedly pay $1,000 per month in fees, plus 10% of their personal income as tithes. Because the organization holds nonprofit status, those donations qualify as tax-deductible contributions. The Kardashian family members who donate to the church receive annual tax reductions while simultaneously donating to an organization their own mother controls. The money circles back. Tax attorneys who have reviewed similar structures publicly note that the line between legitimate religious nonprofit and personal tax shelter becomes legally significant when the primary beneficiaries are also the founders. No formal charges have been filed in connection with the church, but the structure has drawn scrutiny, and the name connected to helping Kris establish it makes the story considerably more serious. The individual reportedly involved in helping Kris Jenner establish California Community Church is Lou Taylor, Britney Spears' former business manager. That name carries significant legal weight. Lou Taylor has been accused of playing a central role in the conservatorship that controlled Britney Spears' finances and personal life for over 13 years. Investigators and journalists covering the Britney conservatorship documented allegations that Taylor and her associates transferred substantial sums, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars, out of Britney's accounts and into the hands of those managing her estate. Multiple sources allege that some of those funds were redirected toward associates connected to the Kardashian-Jenner family. No criminal charges have been brought against Lou Taylor specifically in connection with the Kardashians. But the overlap between a conservatorship scandal that consumed one of the most famous women in the world and the financial infrastructure of another famous family is not a coincidence investigators have ignored. It is a thread, and threads have a way of leading somewhere. Shortly before Kanye West was permanently banned from X, he made a series of public statements that legal teams and media strategists would normally move swiftly to suppress. Kim and Kris Jenner did not file a lawsuit. They did not issue a cease and desist. They went quiet, and that silence has since become its own kind of evidence for observers watching closely. Kanye's specific allegation was direct. He drew a comparison between the Kardashian family and Jeffrey Epstein, stating that the Kardashians engage in the same conduct. His word was sexing as a means of transactional exchange. He tied this directly to his children and indicated he would not apologize to other parties until the Kardashians were held accountable. For context, Ray J accused the Kardashians of RICO-level crimes and was met with a defamation lawsuit almost immediately. Kanye made a substantially more severe allegation, one involving the trafficking of human beings, and received no legal response at all. Legal experts will tell you that filing a defamation suit requires confidence that discovery won't expose something worse. The Kardashians sued Ray J. They never touched Kanye's claim. RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, was originally designed to dismantle organized crime syndicates, but federal prosecutors have expanded its application significantly over the decades. To trigger a RICO investigation, authorities do not need to prove one large crime. They need to demonstrate a pattern of related criminal activity conducted through an ongoing enterprise. Look at what the documented record currently contains: unauthorized credit card charges resulting in a civil judgment, casino cash transfers from a federal fugitive, an FBI interview that was quietly closed, a nonprofit structure with built-in financial returns to the founding family, and alleged financial connections to a conservatorship fraud case. Each item alone is a footnote. Together, they begin to resemble exactly the kind of pattern RICO was built to prosecute. Ray J said publicly that the Kardashians would go down for RICO crimes. At the time, most people laughed. But Ray J was present for years inside that circle, close enough to watch, close enough to know. When someone with that level of proximity makes a specific legal prediction, the investigative question is not whether to take it seriously. The question is what he saw that most people didn't. The FBI file on J.O. Lowe contains a specific account of one night in Las Vegas that federal agents found significant enough to document in detail. The year was 2009. Kim Kardashian was at a private casino table with Lowe and two producers connected to the Wolf of Wall Street. The game ran until the early hours of the morning. Around 5 a.m., Kim moved to leave. A friend stopped her. Word had circulated that Lowe had a habit of distributing casino chips to guests at the end of a winning night. Kim stayed, Lowe won, and when the session ended, he handed her chips valued at over $350,000. She walked to the casino counter and cashed out $250,000 on the spot. The cashier handed it back in a trash bag filled with $100 bills, which Kim placed directly into her carry-on luggage and boarded a commercial flight home. Federal law requires individuals to declare cash amounts exceeding $10,000 when crossing certain financial and border thresholds. Kim was carrying 25 times that amount in a carry-on bag on a domestic flight. The remaining $100,000 was collected on a separate occasion, also in a trash bag. The FBI documented both transactions, no charges followed, but the file remained open long enough to confirm this was not considered a routine social exchange. If this investigation is raising questions you haven't heard answered anywhere else, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. This story is still developing, and we are going to stay on it. Kris Jenner has operated as the executive manager of her children's careers for over 2 decades. That is not unusual in the entertainment industry. What is unusual is the degree to which the financial infrastructure around the Kardashian brand appears to route money back through entities Kris directly controls: the church, the management fees, the production companies. Several financial analysts covering celebrity wealth structures have pointed out that the Kardashian business model is architecturally unusual. Revenue streams from endorsements, licensing deals, and brand partnerships flow through a web of interconnected LLCs and family-managed entities. That structure is legal. It is also exactly the kind of structure that makes financial forensics complicated, intentionally or otherwise. Some FBI sources quoted in coverage of the J-Ho Low investigation specifically noted that agents believed Kris may have facilitated Kim's introduction to Low, not incidentally, but deliberately. Nothing in the public record confirms that allegation at the level of criminal evidence, but it appears in the investigative file, and when federal agents write something down, they generally have a reason for doing so. Katt Williams made a specific observation that has aged unusually well. He noted that the men who entered Kim Kardashian's orbit didn't just move on, they unraveled. Pete Davidson entered one of the most public relationships of his life and emerged visibly destabilized. Kanye West went from one of the most commercially dominant artists in the world to a man banned from major platforms, stripped of business partnerships, and fighting public custody battles. Ray J, who knew the family longest and most intimately, has spent years in court fighting a defamation suit brought by the very people he claims wronged him first. His mother's legal declaration ultimately backed his account, and yet he remains the one most publicly dismissed, most consistently characterized as unreliable, most effectively neutralized as a credible source. That is a pattern Katt Williams identified before most journalists did, not the pattern of a celebrity who dates badly, the pattern of an organization that manages its exposure and manages the people who could expose it. When every man who gets close ends up either silent, discredited, or destabilized, the investigative question is not about the men, it is about the mechanism. Return to the SKIMS drug bust for a moment, because the most important question in that case has not been answered publicly. The hidden compartment found inside that freight trailer was not improvised. It was engineered into the trailer door structure with precision. That level of construction requires planning, resources, and access to the vehicle well in advance of the shipment. That means someone inside the logistics chain knew, not necessarily someone at SKIMS corporate, but someone with enough familiarity with the shipment schedule, the route, and the trailer assignment to coordinate a $9.4 million cocaine load without triggering internal red flags. Supply chain experts have noted publicly that infiltrating a major brand's freight network is not a casual operation. It requires inside knowledge or inside access. SKIMS ships globally. This was one truck, one port, one custom stop. The driver received less than $5,000 for a job that netted someone else nearly $10 million. That arithmetic does not suggest a small, independent operation. It suggests infrastructure. And infrastructure, by definition, does not exist for a single run. But the deeper issue isn't the truck, it is the timing. Because this seizure did not happen in isolation, it happened during a period when multiple long-buried stories around the Kardashian network were suddenly resurfacing at once. Lawsuits, financial filings, old FBI interviews, celebrity testimony, and allegations that had previously been dismissed as internet conspiracy content. That convergence matters. Investigators often say that major cases do not begin with one catastrophic discovery. They begin with fragments, independent fragments that appear unrelated until someone starts mapping the overlap. One shipment here, one financial transfer there, one nonprofit structure, one sealed deposition, one celebrity meltdown, one quiet settlement. Then the lines begin connecting themselves. And the Kardashian empire has accumulated an unusual number of lines. Consider the speed with which narratives around the family are managed publicly. Stories that could damage the brand tend to disappear almost as quickly as they surface. Outlets pivot, headlines soften, clips vanish, trending discussions lose momentum with almost surgical precision. In Hollywood, reputation management is common, but people inside entertainment law quietly admit that the Kardashian operation functions more like a political machine than a celebrity family. That distinction matters because political machines survive through leverage over media, leverage over business partners, leverage over insider, leverage over former associates. Katt Williams wasn't describing gossip when he sat on Club Shay Shay. He was describing power, and specifically the kind of power that causes people to stop talking after they get close enough to see how the system works. Remember what Katt actually emphasized? He wasn't obsessed with Kim Kardashian herself. He was focused on the environment around her, the ecosystem, the handlers, the managers, the gatekeepers, the people operating behind the celebrity image. That is where investigators always look first, in enterprise-level cases. Not the face of the brand, the infrastructure behind it. And once you begin examining that infrastructure, certain recurring names continue appearing around high-profile controversies. Lou Taylor, Kris Jenner, financial managers, lawyers, LLC structures, nonprofits, licensing companies, production entities, quiet settlements. Again, none of those elements independently prove criminal activity, but together, they form something investigators call operational consistency. The same name, the same methods, the same protective structures, the same outcomes. And then there is the issue nobody in mainstream entertainment media seems comfortable discussing directly. Why so many former insiders appear emotionally destroyed after leaving the Kardashian orbit? Kanye West is the most visible example because his collapse happened in public. But he is far from the only one. Lamar Odom battled addiction and near death after years connected to the family. Scott Disick spiraled repeatedly under the pressure of that environment. Tristan Thompson became a tabloid caricature. Kris Humphries disappeared from relevance almost overnight after publicly challenging aspects of the Kardashian media machine. Again, celebrity breakups happen every day. But observers like Katt Williams are pointing to something different, a recurring pattern where proximity to the family appears to coincide with personal implosion, public humiliation, or reputational destruction. And in Hollywood, patterns are currency. That is why Ray J's statements continue haunting this story years later. Because Ray J was there before the billion-dollar empire fully existed, before the Hulu deals, before SKIMS, before the carefully controlled image. He saw the machinery while it was still being built. And according to court filings, he believes that machinery operates more like an organized enterprise than a traditional celebrity business. When Ray J invoked RICO publicly, most viewers interpreted it as emotional retaliation. But legal analysts noticed something more important. He used the terminology of enterprise crime specifically, not fraud generally, not corruption broadly, enterprise activity. That wording is precise. Under RICO statutes, prosecutors look for continuity. They look for repeated conduct serving a larger organizational benefit. They look for systems designed to protect revenue streams and insulate leadership from direct exposure. Critics argue there is no evidence the Kardashians meet that threshold, and legally that is true. No prosecutor has publicly alleged such a case. But what makes this story persist is that new incidents keep emerging that seem to reinforce the same underlying questions. Take the Joe Low situation again. Federal investigators did not randomly question Kim Kardashian. They questioned her because money tied to one of the largest international financial fraud cases in modern history moved directly into her possession. The amount was enormous. The circumstances were unusual, and the documentation was specific enough that federal files described literal trash bags full of cash. Most celebrities spend years trying to avoid even the appearance of financial impropriety. Yet this episode barely dented the Kardashian public image at all. Why? That question matters because public immunity at that scale is rare. Usually, repeated controversies eventually create reputational collapse. But with the Kardashians, the opposite often happens. Attention appears to strengthen the brand. Some media theorists believe the family perfected something unprecedented: monetized scandal insulation. In other words, controversy itself becomes fuel, provided the core infrastructure controlling the narrative remains intact. And that brings the story back to SKIMS. Because the logistics breach surrounding that cocaine seizure revealed something potentially larger than narcotics trafficking. It revealed vulnerability inside a billion-dollar commercial operation. Vulnerability that sophisticated criminal organizations could exploit. Supply chain experts interviewed after the seizure noted that fashion distribution networks are increasingly attractive targets for international trafficking groups, precisely because high-volume apparel shipments receive less scrutiny than traditionally high-risk cargo categories. That means luxury fashion logistics can become camouflage. Again, authorities explicitly stated there is no evidence SKIMS corporate leadership knew about the cocaine shipment. That point is critical. But sophisticated criminal enterprises do not need corporate executives directly involved to exploit an infrastructure. They only need access points, and access points are everything. One compromised route, one compromised contractor, one compromised freight coordinator, one compromised customs broker. That is how major trafficking systems operate globally. Which raises another uncomfortable question. If traffickers were confident enough to hide nearly $10 million worth of cocaine inside a branded SKIMS shipment, how many times had similar operations succeeded before authorities finally intercepted one? Customs experts say seizures rarely represent the first attempt. They usually represent the shipment that got caught. That reality changes the scale of the conversation entirely. Because now the issue stops being celebrity gossip and starts becoming a question of organized logistics penetration, the exact type of issue federal investigators treat extremely seriously when evaluating broader criminal networks. And notice how quickly the story disappeared from mainstream headlines. A global celebrity brand linked even indirectly to a multi-million-dollar cocaine seizure should have dominated entertainment media for weeks. Instead, coverage faded almost immediately. No sustained investigative push, no nightly panels, no extended scrutiny. That silence is part of why people keep revisiting Katt Williams' interview. He implied there are forces around the Kardashian empire that operate with unusual effectiveness when it comes to controlling exposure. At the time, many dismissed him as provocative. But since then, too many oddly connected incidents have surfaced for critics to ignore comfortably. Even Kanye's comments fit that framework. People focused on the outrageous wording of his accusations while overlooking the deeper implication. Kanye was describing the Kardashians less as a family and more as a coordinated system, a structure designed to extract value, manage influence, and neutralize threats. Whether those claims are true is ultimately a matter for investigators, not internet speculation. But what cannot be denied is this. The Kardashian empire sits at the intersection of celebrity, politics, finance, fashion, media control, nonprofit structures, elite social networks, and global business operations. That level of overlap naturally attracts scrutiny, and scrutiny intensifies when controversial incidents continue stacking on top of each other year after year. Katt Williams understood something many entertainers avoid saying publicly. Once a celebrity brand reaches a certain scale, it stops behaving like entertainment and starts behaving like an institution. Institutions protect themselves. That protection can be legal,
Financial,
political, media-driven, or reputational, sometimes all at once. And maybe that explains why stories connected to this family so often feel unfinished, why questions linger longer than answers, why witnesses contradict each other, why lawsuits emerge selectively, why some allegations trigger immediate legal warfare while others receive silence. Because silence can also be strategy. The most revealing part of this entire saga may not be the lawsuits, the FBI files, the cash transfers, or even the cocaine seizure. It may be the reaction patterns surrounding them. Who gets ignored? Who gets sued? Who gets discredited? Who disappears? And who remains untouchable? That is the pattern Katt Williams pointed toward before the headlines caught up. Not proof, not convictions, not a courtroom verdict. A pattern. And patterns are where every major investigation begins.